Well, speaking of relationship, how's it going for you?
I had a spontaneous experience a couple of days ago, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought. Love is basically a biochemical cocktail in our brain. And what happens
Tell
is
me more.
that, and they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I feel so good when he's here. Then you go into the dating apps, for example, which is something that I've done as well, but I don't have any additional information as to why I should swipe right on you,
Yeah.
right? You can't really smell the person, and you can't really, like, you don't make eye contact with some. Her request was, Elena, like, I want to get pregnant again. I want a second child and I can't get pregnant for quite some time now. Do you have any tips for me? And basically a month later she got pregnant.
Amazing.
Welcome to Biohacking in the City, Part 2. The reason we recorded the first episode with my good friend Ala Rahmatulina was that she asked me about a tutorial on Biohacking 101. How can someone improve their energy and focus level on a daily basis, their immunity and their overall performance at work, and how they can get more things done. And there wasn't such a tutorial for me to send her. And today we're going to extend the matter of personal health, improving your health in different ways. And I think that the only thing that we didn't touch upon last time was actually what else matters beyond your physical health. Right? And Ala, as a dating expert, I think that we can have a very interesting conversation about community and connections in a special city like Dubai. And we all love this city. I have to say that it's very eccentric. It's not like any other place in the world.
That's true, Lena. Thank you very much for inviting me. Very happy to be here with you again. And you're right, well-being in general is very complex, right? And you spoke about so many aspects that are very basic, maybe sleep, exercise, right? All these things in the first episode
Yes.
that people do every day but don't know much about. But sometimes we forget that for our well-being, the relationship with other people, and I'm not talking only about romantic relationship, but just being connected with another person, your friends, your family, is super important as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. For me, recently, I actually had a surprising finding with my new Whoop device because I got this device a few weeks ago, and the one thing that I didn't expect to see is that there is actually a difference when I have, let's say, a working day full of Zoom meetings, and I'm just at home because I have
By
a home
yourself.
office set up by myself. And when I have meetings in person or spending time with friends, or even if I'm spending time with my colleagues in person and we're having a good time chatting about work and social media production and content creation, my levels of stress are so low. So
Wow.
this was something that I didn't expect to see because, it was a huge surprise to see how much this actually impacts my body, my physique, and the levels of stress that I'm experiencing. Because obviously, hormones like cortisol can affect our mood, can affect our neurotransmitters like oxytocin and serotonin. But when cortisol goes down, we actually secrete more of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, which is a really cool thing to see.
Well, as a dating expert and a person who helps people to connect, I definitely can say there is a big, big value of being with someone in a healthy relationship, of course, right? In a healthy connection, but even having friendships, having social circle, and especially having your partner with who you can share your daily life, share whatever you do in your life, experiences, sadness sometimes, right? All the good
Yes.
things that happen to us, that definitely improves our, and probably I would think of it as something mental, but since our mental depends also on our biology, right, and it's all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not surprisingly, even in a documentary, right, about those people who live very long, right, all these blue zones, how they call it, right, they found out they were trying to find food, special climate, special everything. But then
Yes.
what they all have in common that is the same is
Mm-hmm.
being a part of the community. Either it's a big family or it's that the community organized somewhere, right? So it's very
Yes.
difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we are living in a place like Dubai, right? People do feel disconnected. People do feel lonely. That's why they come to me, to my events, for example, right? Because there is
Yes.
no other way for them to connect. And I can imagine that you also experience the same. I experience this, even though I'm surrounded by people all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are those moments when you do feel lonely, and that's when we learn to be with another person, and you do have this scientific explanation on how it works, right? What are
Yes.
usually the feel well, we feel happy, but what are the hormones that we produce being with
Mm-hmm.
other people around with them?
Yeah, so oxytocin would be the main bonding hormone, I would say. And then there are a couple of other ones. Serotonin is also very important for our brain health and overall, let's say, thinking process and concentration, even. And is basically the hormone that you would secrete when someone would praise you for something
Really?
that you did, that actually acknowledges you and supports you for an achievement. You would secrete serotonin. And interestingly, with things like that, there is actually no there is nothing that you can do to stop your brain from reacting this way.
Wow.
Or if someone surprises you, you would get secretion of dopamine in your brain,
Like
right?
me
It's
right now, because
increased.
I didn't know about this, and you surprised me with this fact.
Yes, yes,
Nice.
exactly. And there is nothing you can do to stop this reaction. It's on autopilot because we have evolved as species that lives in a community, in a society, and this is how, how life continues basically through us bonding. So you had a great point there about the blue zones because this was also a very surprising finding for me because I was also looking into the biology of these blue zones, and actually their diets are completely different. So for example, you
Mm-hmm.
have a place in Greece like an island called Ikaria, which is a blue zone, and you have a lot of people living past 100 years there, and they have like a lot of local produce, vegetables, and they have their sheep and goats that they're raising and whatnot. And then you have places in Japan, in Okinawa, where the diet is quite different. So it's a lot of seafood,
Seafood,
for
probably.
example, but also rice. There is one factor that I think is quite common in the blue zones in terms of the diet, which is the absence of processed foods. So this is very, very
Mm-hmm.
important. So no matter what the foods are, even if you're eating carbs, if you avoid processed foods, I think this is a big factor for longevity.
Natural.
But other than that, the one common thing that they all have in common is indeed the sense of the community and having, like close friends, having loved ones, and spending time with them on a daily basis. So definitely, in places like Dubai, for example, it's a huge city with a lot of events going on. But actually, like when you first come here, especially, like it could be
Yeah.
very lonely because you don't know anyone. So this is definitely a struggle for a lot of people living in Dubai, but fortunately, we have people like you organizing wonderful events, especially, with what you do for singles. We all know that you probably were the original matchmaker that had, organized the paddle events in Dubai, and then everyone else replicated it. And then other very intriguing events to which I've been as well a couple of times. And, I had great fun, right? So, I think that in Dubai, it's really important to get out of your comfort zone to build a new social circle. But not everyone is a natural extrovert, for instance, right? So there might be people, moving to Dubai and then, they struggle for quite some time, to find their social circle and to also find, a relationship in Dubai. And because I think what makes it such a unique place is that there are people here from all parts of the world, right? So the cultural background is very different. And then you go into the dating apps, for example, which is something that I've done as well. And I think that it's quite difficult to understand, like, what are the common values, what is the cultural background of someone, because in the app, it's not the same as meeting someone in person. So you can't really smell the person, and you can't really, like, you don't see their, what's the word? You don't make eye contact with someone in a dating app,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you don't really have the feeling that you would have for someone in real life. So with that, I think that a lot of people are just ending up going into this infinite first dates in Dubai that don't lead anywhere. And this is really the plague of Dubai nowadays.
That's true, but a fun fact about dating apps and even just chatting with people on the dating apps, and one of the reasons why people go there, right? That even when you haven't met, you haven't smelled the person, you haven't seen them, you already, while chatting, if the chat goes well, we already produce oxytocin.
Yes.
We already get this connection, and a lot of people just, sometimes people would think, oh, why we spoke so nicely with the person, but then they never showed up or
Yeah.
never invited on a date or something like that, because they already got, this little bit of oxytocin and dopamine hit, a
Microdose.
microdose of it. Yes. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, but this all shows that we do need connection, and definitely people in a healthy relationship. You tell me, this is something I preach all the time, that
Hmm.
people in a healthy relationship live longer, live happier.
Yes.
The happier you are, the longer you will live, probably, right? Usually
Hmm.
people who are stressed, depressed, anxious
Yes.
all the time, they they get sick more often, their immune system is
Hmm.
going down all the time, right? And overall well-being also
Yes.
is not at the level that
Hmm.
they wish. So
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic actually, because what happens is that love is basically a biochemical cocktail in our brain. And what happens
tell me
is
more.
that so there are a couple of ways to fall in love. So when in our earlier years in life, either in our within our family or in our close environment, we have examples of how human relationships are being built, we tend to replicate the same models of behavior in our adult life. So,
Mm-hmm.
what happens, for example, with someone who's growing up and is seeing toxic relationships around them, either between their parents or with other people in their
Yeah.
environment, what will happen is that for them, love is registered as this emotional roller coaster. And what it is in
Mm.
terms of the biochemistry cocktail is actually a roller coaster of us first producing cortisol and adrenaline, which
Adrenaline,
is the stress
yeah.
hormones. And what happens there? So, the first response when you are afraid, so you could be afraid of a physical threat or mental or someone dumping you, for example, right? So, adrenaline gets produced. So that's the fight or flight response. After
Mm.
that, in order to sustain this state where you actually have to be decisive and fight for your life, cortisol is
Yeah.
getting produced. So how does
Oh.
cortisol go down? Like it's we basically secrete endorphins, right? And this is the positive hormones, this is the body's natural opioids, so it makes us
Mm.
feel good. So for that reason you see people stuck in toxic relationships where they have this emotional roller coaster with their partner first, love bombing them, and then going cold on them, and then the cycle repeats, and actually they break up and then they find another person that does exactly the same.
But that's because they produce, the positive hormones after
Yeah,
that
yeah, exactly.
to kind
Because
of neutralize the cortisol and
yeah,
adrenaline.
not
I
only
see.
neutralizes because it's producing a high, it's producing a natural high, and
Mm.
they feel so good when this happens. And this is why they say things like, yeah, but when it's good, it's so good with him, and
Mm.
this is why I don't want to leave this relationship, because they have this high. Because when the partner goes cold on them, they don't have any oxytocin
Yeah.
to be produced, right? So
Yeah.
they're starving of the emotional connection. And then a few days later, the partner is coming back, let's say they're breadcrumbing them and they just give them just a bit of attention, and this produces a massive spike of oxytocin. And they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I feel so good when he's here, right? So this is what happens in terms of the biochemistry in the brain, which is very interesting. So this is only one way that you can sustain a relationship and fall in love. Another one, a healthier one, would be without this emotional roller coaster, or actually, to be precise, you would just have alterations between the positive hormones. So
Mm-hmm.
you would have oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, you would have the serotonin, the praise hormone, then you would have dopamine with some surprise and intrigue and having amazing
Mm-hmm.
experiences with your partner. So this is the healthy model of fall in love, for lack of a better wording for it, but you probably get what I mean.
Very nice. Elena, in the last episode, you spoke a lot about your daily routine and everything that you do.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of relationship, how's it going for you?
Well,
We will explore a bit of that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, as I said, with the dating apps, like I think that for most people, including myself, it's like a bit of a hit and miss, basically, because you have to try a lot to actually like get a feeling for the person and understand if you want to meet them, right? And what happens, and especially here in Dubai, I think that a lot of people are traumatized by the transactional relationships in Dubai. So, for example, for me, I see a lot of profiles of men that the only information that they have in their bio is that, oh, I'm not interested in escorts, I'm not interested in friends with benefits, whatever that might be, right? But actually, okay, I don't know if they thought it through, because here is a normal woman, right, coming to their profile and reading their profile, and you have this visual real estate where you actually have a chance to describe to me who are you, and
Mm-hmm.
so I can get to know you and I can decide if you're an interesting person. And the only information that I have there is that you're not interested in escorts. Okay, well, I'm not an escort, right? So like I'm not looking for friends with benefits. I'm looking for a real connection. But I don't have any additional information as to why I should swipe right on you,
Yeah.
right? So I think that this is actually.
Would you wanna see in that bio?
Mhm.
Like what kind of description would catch your attention?
Yeah, well, for myself at the moment, so I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for a new relationship. So I'm looking for a partner that will have similar values with me. So, for example, one value that I carry from my family is basically self-development and intellectual curiosity. That is ever going. So, I used to play chess a lot with my
Mm-hmm.
grandpa when I was little. So he taught me how to play chess. And I used to play at school as well in tournaments and so on. And then my grandmother, who was a dentist, and it was like a big deal back in the Soviet Union, right? Like 60 years ago or something. She was a very smart woman. So she used to buy me all this like child encyclopedias with
Mm-hmm.
like the little images of, I don't know, plants or
Wow.
rocket ships or biology, things like that. So I was always learning something as I was growing up. And I think this is something that I will also instill into my children as well when
Mm-hmm.
I have a family,
What
which is
else?
the ultimate goal. What else? I think that, yeah, for me, it's very important to have also common interests and lifestyle as well. I'm quite an active person with all of my biohacking. I love new experiences. And, we briefly touched upon hormones, and actually, there are people that are motivated by different hormones. We had
Yes.
this conversation
You know the
before.
test for matchmaking that I gave you as well, right? And I
Yes.
always give to my clients. It defines your type by the hormones that actually drive your behavior.
Yes, exactly. So we had this conversation before the podcast at some point, and we've been saying that you are a skydiver, for example, right? And you're dopamine driven, and you like the thrill of it. And interestingly, for me, I love being in the air, but I'm not doing skydiving at the moment, and I'm not doing it often. But I have periods in my life where I love paragliding, for
Mm-hmm.
example. And I asked myself this question after we had the conversation: why do I like it so much? And really, the response there is that I just like the views from above. Like, I love a good view. So, last time I paraglided, it was in Brazil a few months ago, like over Rio de Janeiro and Ipanema Beach. It was one of the most beautiful views I've ever saw in my life. And the bottom line here is that I'm not driven by dopamine as a person. I'm driven by
There
serotonin.
to serotonin,
Yes.
yes.
So this kind of people, they're usually it's like, what we say, like, oh, enjoy the journey, and like the goal is not that important. For me, the goal is important. So I don't care how I'm gonna get there. I don't care if my reality every day, let's say at work, is like some repetitive things that I have to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
what I care about is moving towards my goal and eventually achieving my goal. And like I'm really happy when I achieve my goals, either in business or in personal life, like in anything. Yes, so I think that this is also very interesting. And with that in mind, I'm probably looking for a person that, that would be the same, that would have the same mindset and would be enjoying the same things. Interestingly, I had a spontaneous experience a couple of days ago, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So
What is
the,
it?
well, like a common friend of us invited me somewhere on a 6 hour notice. So usually this is not the case in my life. I don't do things spontaneously, but because there was only one thing that I needed to move around to go to this event. I'm not gonna name it, but I had an
I also
amazing
received
time.
an invitation, I remember.
Yes, exactly. So I had a wonderful time with our friends. We had really deep conversations that day. It was actually really, really cool. And I realized that actually now, I'm kind of getting out of operations of my business and I'm having more time for myself and the next stage of my life, which is, which would be to find a
Mm-hmm.
life partner as well. So I'm basically open to this experience. Like I'm already location free for quite some time, and now my time is getting freed up as well. And I'm enjoying this a bit more as well. Yes.
Great.
So then I think that something else that is important to consider is that for every couple to be successful, there should be three things in alignment. So this would be love, this would be, and then this would be a common goal that they would be working towards. And the goal could be anything. For someone, it could be having and raising children. For someone else, another couple, it could be building an empire together. And, it's always great to define this from the start because a lot of people don't discuss very crucial things from the start when they first meet, and then, a few months later, it turns out that one of them doesn't want children, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, this whole thing, I think, this whole discussion.
Speaking of children, I also have another question for you for a little later.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It also depends, on the age of the individuals in question. And what we're seeing is that more and more people opt in for having children later in life, for instance.
Okay, since you spoke about it,
Hmm.
I was gonna ask you today because, we're not getting younger,
Hmm.
unfortunately. With your help, we might
Or
be
are we?
re well, hopefully reversing aging sometime soon, right? But at least we can
Yeah.
slow it down for
Hmm.
as much as we can. And I guess I can relate to that question as well because we're about the
Hmm.
same age. We both don't have children yet, but we both plan. And in my work, right? This is what happens. The man would prefer someone and even insist on if they want to just start first time the family and have the first child, they would not want to meet someone older than 33. Let's say 35 is like the maximum. So
Wow.
basically, I'm 37, you're 37 too, right? We're
Yes.
same age. We're kind of done in
Hmm.
their eyes, right? But talking to you, talking to other specialists, right? I know that this is not really true. But it's not only true for those women who do certain things, right? So is there something that you already consider to that side, right?
Hmm.
Like you being becoming a mother soon.
Hmm.
And do you think that all this biohacking routine that you do somehow helps you to extend this period of time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. So first of all, I think that it's very evident by data that we have from different kind of interventions right now that the fertility window can actually go up significantly. So this is also the case for myself. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
37 years old, just like you. And what happens is that actually I'm doing all these different biological age tests of the different tissues, immune system, heart system, skin, all of this
All
thing.
right.
So all of my tests show biological age under the age of 30. So they show 27, 28 on average. So it's the same with my fertility. So my hormones are being maintained at quite high level, and it's the same level as it was, like many years ago, like probably 10 years ago. So what happens is that I also have a natural, like, broad fertility window in my family because my aunt actually had a baby at 49
Oh,
with
wow.
IVF with her own cells, but she carried the baby, and they're both super healthy. So there
Very
is
nice.
that element in my family as well. And that's before the biohacking kicks in, right? So I'm actually, as a 37-year-old woman, I'm still not in a rush because I still know that I have a lot of time to go where my fertility will be maintained. And also, there is a concept that is called longevity escape velocity. I don't know if you've heard of this concept. So, it's basically the concept that says that for every year of our
Mm-hmm.
life, if we can offset our aging for more than a year, this means that we're basically getting ahead of aging,
Yeah.
right? So, we prevent aging. And there are some people that argue that we already have hit this point of longevity escape velocity. And this makes sense according to the data that I've seen so far, not only from myself, but from studies from different biohacking interventions like
Mm-hmm.
peptides, for example. And, there is things that increase the length of your telomeres, which is the caps of your chromosome. And basically, the longer the telomeres, the longer you're
Yeah.
going to live. So the data is already there. There is other interventions like genome engineering nowadays as well, and you can pretty much modify your genes already, right? And boost the telomerase enzyme, for example, that will help your telomeres to be maintained at a lengthier size. So that's there. So I'm actually very confident that we can maintain fertility for many, many years if we are taking care of ourselves. And, it all goes in synergy, just like we discussed in the previous episode of Biohacking in the City, part one. So like and subscribe for that one. And what I'm seeing is that we basically have very conscious people nowadays that do take care of their health, and they do take themselves
Yeah.
seriously. They take their health seriously. So with this kind of people that are already successful in life, they have basically, they don't have to be worrying about their basic needs. They have a good income. They can afford to invest into their health. Like, we can see such amazing results already with all of these tests. Now, when it comes to dating, I think that indeed, the broader audience is not informed yet about what is possible, and what is the real image when it comes to the fertility and the age of a woman and
Mm-hmm.
a man, actually, because fertility goes both ways, right? Because we do have in certain populations, and especially people that follow Western diet, for example, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
SAD, standard
Yeah.
American diet, processed food, seed oils, we do see fertility rates going down, but this is primarily because of insulin resistance.
I think you need to make another episode and actually educate people properly, because there's really a lot of information that maybe is new and
Yes.
people still live by something,
Mm-hmm.
50 years old,
Yes.
and thinking of that without knowing what's going on.
Absolutely, because there are so many conditions that are reversible. So the first reversible condition is the actual insulin resistance, and what we have a lot of is actually PCOS right now, polycystic ovary syndromes, but this is also tightly linked to your insulin levels. So when you have polycystic ovary syndrome, like, you basically cannot get pregnant, right?
Mm.
But it's absolutely reversible with lifestyle interventions.
Well, you told me about one of your employees,
Yes,
right?
yes.
She couldn't get pregnant, and then she got pregnant, started taking NMN
Yes, exactly. So this
as
was
one of the
very, very,
solutions.
interesting because
You
we.
definitely should tell people more about it. There's so many cases with NMN that people have so many improvements regarding energy, fertility,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yeah, she joined NMN Bio in January, and then as a perk of our company, we actually have one personal session with me, with Dr. Elena, in order to, like a health consultation, basically longevity consultation. And her request was, Elena, like, I want to get pregnant again. I want a second child, and I
Yeah.
can't get pregnant for quite some time now. Do you have any tips for me? So I recommended to her, the NMN and also a couple of other supplements. And basically, a month later, she got pregnant.
Amazing. Amazing. Really nice.
Yes.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
we are talking that how relationship is important, right? And we want to have the relationship to extend our life, but then
Yes.
we need to extend, like, if the life is long, we
Mm-hmm.
need to have a right person for that
Absolutely.
as well, right?
Yes, yeah. And I
Um,
think that biohackers like kind of take it to the edge because, people like Brian Johnson advocate against sleeping with your partner and actually sleeping alone in order
right.
not to disrupt your sleep. But for
What
me,
about cuddles?
this doesn't make sense because the reason I want to extend my life is to basically, live a really nice life with my partner. So that's actually speaking of common goals in relationships. So for myself, I have defined what is the goal in my relationship that I want to
All
have,
right.
and
What
it's
is it?
basically to spend the maximum amount of years in good health happily with my partner. So that's the kind of partner that I'm looking for. And for example, like, I wouldn't be able to achieve this goal if I would choose a partner that is not taking care of their health. So for me, this is very, very important. If someone is a smoker, like, it's not going to be the maximum amount of years in good health, right? So this is also something that I'm definitely looking
Mm-hmm.
for. And it all goes back to, basically having a thorough foundation of yourself, if that makes sense, both mentally and physically. Because in order to show up for your relationship and to be a good partner, you have to be good with yourself, right? First, in your brain, first mentally, you have to be mentally stable, you have to be happy, you have to take accountability for your feelings as well, because the other person, like, they might be reacting in a certain way and whatnot, but you can't assign another person to be in charge of your feelings. And this is what we're seeing a lot in codependent relationships, for example, right? So
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't like the way their partner is treating them, but they don't leave. And they keep on saying, yes, but he or she needs to make me happy. But actually, if the happiness is within, like, then you interact from an equal position within the relationship, and then the relationship will have a much thorough foundation. So that would be step one. And then step two, for such a person, and again, when you stop struggling with your basic needs and you got out of survival mode after building and building
Mm-hmm.
for years, like, you naturally, like a lot of people would naturally start looking into the physical health aspect as well, getting fit, and again, like, this is something that you're doing for yourself, but also this is how you're going to maximize the amount of years that you spend in good health with your partner as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yes, and bottom line, I don't agree with Brian Johnson on this one. I don't see a
You have to
reason
sleep
to.
together.
I don't see a reason to extend my life to sleep alone forever. Like, this doesn't make sense to me at all.
Well, Elena, I do wish you the right partner soon. I hope I will be able to somehow help you as well. Usually, I say even setting up the right intention. Maybe he's watching your podcast today.
Thank you so much. And I think that we touched on a very interesting topic of fertility. And I'm actually thinking that maybe we can record another episode on fertility with a fertility specialist, because that would be great.
Yes, for sure, because it's all together, right? It's the relationship. As you said, the goal of relationship, one of the biggest goals of a couple would be having children, right? So you have to see some women do lose their hope being maybe 40, 45. they think it's already not possible. Even sometimes I have clients, women, right? They're almost 40 or over 40, and they want to have a family, they want to start, being a mother, and they struggle. And even I struggle to find men who would, you know, do that with someone a little older. But
Mm.
I do believe it's possible. And thanks to you, there's many more facts that I hope you will bring to the audience as well, that also, keep me very positive about it. And that helps me to do my job better sometimes, to convince people, give it a chance, because this is the best moments of our life, when we are connected with people. And it's not only about relationship, men and women, right? Like, today we're going to watch the sunset with the group of friends. I'm sure we're going to produce a lot of oxytocin that will definitely improve our well-being. Right? So
Yes.
those moments are very important.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. I think it's super important to build a community that is basically becoming a group of individuals that add something to your life, that add value, and then you just enjoy life together.
Yeah.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this was Biohacking in the City, Part 2. Stay tuned for Part 3 that is coming soon. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.